am Pam Fox at pamfox.org. Welcome back to this week's 7-Day Drink Your Smoothies Challenge, where I'm sharing 7 of my favorite plant-based smoothies of all time. And today I'm going to be making a smoothie, which I know many of you have seen me make many times before, but it is one of my all-time favorites. I love the flavor of it, but I also love it because it is my best smoothie for an energy go-to. If I know I'm going to have a really big day, if I'm going to go on a long hike, if I know that I'm going to be like running a marathon, like not literally, I've never ran a marathon, but you know what I mean, I'm going to have a really busy day. This is my go-to smoothie because it has dates in it, which are a wonderful source of nutrition, but they're also and a good source of energy. So I'm going to throw this smoothie to get together, and we're going to talk a little bit about energy today. We're going to talk, I've got, I pulled this out, the Starch Solution, and I've talked a little bit this week about the diet that I first went on that began my healing process from a lifetime of lifelong illness, a lot of different things, a lot of different issues. But I talked about the raw till 4 diet and how much healing I experienced and how wonderful I felt and how much energy I had, but it wasn't sustainable for me. I know a lot of people are on raw till 4, they love it, it works for them. It wasn't sustainable for me because I was getting tired of fruit and it was very expensive because you had to buy such a large volume of fruit. So I ended up switching to this diet called the Starch Solution, and today I really do a combination of both. I kind of do a compromise of both. And so we'll talk a little bit about the Starch Solution, what it is, how it works. Really the difference between raw till 4 is a fruit heavy diet. The Starch Solution is a starch heavy diet. So I really just try to have a healthy balance of both is what I do. But I want to talk a little bit about the Starch Solution today because I highly recommend Dr. John McDougall. And we're just going to talk, I'm just going to read the preface today and we're going to talk a little bit about starch. So let's throw together this smoothie. Here I have some dates. I usually buy these in the bulk food section of my local grocery store, but that's shut down because of COVID, and now they're packaging things in these awful little plastic containers, but they are recyclable. You can recycle them. I like to do, and these are the smaller ones. They're not the big ones. I can't remember. There's medjool dates and there's the neglet dwars, and I can't remember which is which, but one is smaller and one is bigger. These come pitted. They don't have pits in them. I'm going to put, I usually just throw in, I squeeze them first just to make sure they didn't miss a pit, because if you have a Vitamix, it'll just blend up that pit and you'll have a pit in your smoothie. I usually put in 8 to 10 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll do 9 of these dates. And you can do this as a hot smoothie or a cold smoothie. I typically do hot in the winter, cold in the summer. So I'm just going to be, I've got some water here. This is hot. You see the steam? It's hot water. Just going to pour that in. And you just want to be sure anytime you're using hot water with your blender that everything's, you know, this bottom piece is on nice and tight. Your lid is on nice and tight. I'm going to put a sprinkle of, this is Ceylon Cinnamon from my local spice pantry here in town, where they sell wonderful spices and spice blends. All right, so it's going to be loud. I'm going to put in a couple more dates. It's not quite the creaminess that I like because I put in a little bit too much water. Just 3 more dates. Let this go a little bit longer. You have to let it run for about a minute. If you have a regular blender, you can put your dates when you're boiling your water. You can put them right in the water to soften them up, and you might get good results. But I just wanted to show you guys this. Typically when I do this hot date, I just do dates and water. Sometimes I put in a little soy milk or something like that to give it a little bit more creaminess. But I just want to show you this. This is just dates and water and a little bit of cinnamon It's really almost like a hot apple cider. Not that it tastes appley, but it's kind of what it reminds me of. It's because it's got the cinnamon in there. It's sweet. It's probably a little too hot for me to drink right now, but it's wonderful. And so for those of you who are trying to put on weight, you would add your, I might add some nuts in this, maybe a couple of walnuts, cashews, make it extra creamy. Or you could add any of your plant-based milks. So your hemp milk and your soy milk and your cashew milk and your almond milks are going to have a little bit more fat content. You can add in nuts and seeds if you want to make this creamier or add more fat content because you're trying to put on weight. So I just keep mentioning that because for those of you who want to do smoothies to help promote the healing process for digestive issues, you can. And if you're worried about losing weight, you just need to make sure you're putting in those higher fat plant foods and see how it goes. See how you do. For some people, for example, with reflux, they have a difficult time with the fattier foods because they can be a culprit. They oftentimes are a culprit for reflux. But with many of the plant-based fats like nut butters and almond milk and these kind of things, avocado, a lot of people do fine with those. So you really just have to try and see how it goes. But this is the hot date. I think I can sip it. So that's really good. I am going to put, ironically enough, that's not sweet enough for me. I like things sweet. These are the drops I was talking about yesterday. They come in a different brands, a couple different brands at my local natural foods department at the grocery store. I'm just going to put in about, it doesn't take much, 3-4 drops. And that's going to make that a little bit sweeter. There, that's perfect. I know that sounds crazy that a pure date smoothie wouldn't be sweet enough, but it wasn't sweet enough. So there we go. All right, I'm going to set this to the side and we're going to take a look. This can be found, of course, just about any bookstore. You can order it on Amazon. But the Starch Solution is written by a doctor. His name is Dr. John McDougall. And actually, he lives in Portland, Oregon. He's kind of a local guy for me. I don't live in Portland, even though I'm wearing my Portland t-shirt today. I live outside of Portland, about a couple hours outside of Portland. But Dr. John McDougall has helped hundreds of thousands of people, starting with his own clientele, helping them transition to more of a Starch Solution style of diet. And he talks all about his beginnings and how he started to see with his clients their health, just going downhill as he would try to help them in conventional ways. But it wasn't until he helped them with their, transition to a different style of eating that they started to improve. And the reason he chooses the Starch Solution is because there's a lot of historical evidence, and he talks a lot about that as well, for healthy eating with a diet that is high in starches. So I'm going to read this. The preface here is really short. I'm going to read it really quick. I'm going to read. Okay. I grabbed my glasses. Where did I put them? Oh, I left them there. Hang on. Okay, this is a short preface, so we'll go through it really quick. He says, Starch has unlocked the door to good health for thousands of my patients over the last 4 decades. This book was written about 10 years ago, allowing them to lose excess weight and heal from diet-related illnesses like high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, and inflammatory arthritis. More than 5,000 people have taken part in the McDougall residential program. So he does offer these residential programs where you can actually go and work with nurses and doctors, and you stay like at a hotel or a resort or a cruise ship, and you really immerse yourself in this way of living. But if you can't afford that, you can buy the book and you can go to his website where there's tons of free content. So residential programs, the vast majority forever altering the course of their lives. 1.5 million others have purchased 11 books. The longer I practice medicine, the more crystal clear the solution becomes. The Starch Solution shares what I have learned and teaches what you can and must do to regain control of your health and appearance. So here he's talking about the fact that we have control over our health and how we feel. When you go to a conventional doctor, you aren't always given that hope. You're given, well, I'm not really sure what's wrong, or there's not a whole lot we can do for you, but here, take this pill, or yeah, you're going to need surgery. I mean, those are usually the routes that are taken. And while there's a time and a place for those things, why aren't we trying to exhaust all other alternative therapies as well? Like looking at what we're eating and how that's impacting our health. Through the starch solution, many people are able to overcome these chronic degenerative illness like heart disease, our country's number one killer, simply by switching to a diet like the starch solution, which we're going to find out as we go on is really a satisfying and delicious way to eat. And it's a really realistic way to sustainably eat for the rest of your life. It's not like a sacrifice or challenging or hard or any of that. It's actually very easy, very simple, very affordable, and effective. Okay, so he goes on. He says, so you to regain control of your health and appearance with intuitive information backed by scientific proof, an easy to follow plan, and nearly 100 simple and satisfying recipes to pave the way. So he's talking about his book. He's got recipes in here. The Starch Solution shows you how to reclaim your life, all by enjoying your favorite foods. He says, whatever you're doing now is not working, and that's why you've probably picked up this book. Most likely you've tried other diets, probably many of them, but they have failed you. And so I talk about this a lot. The best diet that you are going to be able to consistently, sustainably, and successfully stay on for the rest of your life has to be one that you thoroughly enjoy, right? Food is one of life's great pleasures, and if you don't enjoy the food you're eating with the diet that you've chosen, you're not going to be able to stick to it. So you must have a diet that feeds the body and makes you, healthy and feel good and look your best and all of that while still enjoying it, or you're not going to stick to it. Yeah, maybe you'll be able to stick to it for a week or a month or even 6 months or a year or maybe even 5 years, but will you be able to stick to it for the rest of your life? That's a successful diet. A lot of diets work, but can you stay on it for the rest of your life so that you can continue to promote good health for the rest of your life? And that's why I love the Starch Solution. It's a very realistic diet. It's satisfying, it's delicious, it's nutritious. And for most people, it's going to be really easy to stick to, and you don't have to do it 100% of the time. So even if you dedicate, 5 days a week to the Starch Solution, or 6 days a week, or 4 days a week, or 2 meals a day, then that's going to alter what you're putting in your body and start to make some of those changes. And that might be enough for some people. For me, myself, I like to do it 100%. I like to, I want to be as healthy and feel as good as I possibly can. And I want to go into my older years. I'm 51, so I'm heading in that direction. I've got a grandchild on the way. I've got, a lot of things I want to do. I need that energy. I need that endurance. I need that strength. I need that vitality. I need the, mental health and physical health and all of that. And so what I put in my body is going to affect all of those things. So he goes on to say that he says that most diets make losing easy if you stick with them, but because they ask you to suffer a life of deprivation or make you feel ill, they are not sustainable. Instead, you lose weight, then you lose interest, quickly gaining all the weight back and more, which we see and maybe have experienced. It happens all the time. This says the Starch Solution is different because it offers a way of eating that keeps you feeling satisfied. And that's where the starch comes in. It's the most scientifically proven satisfying food that you can eat is starch. It's a slow burning fuel, and that's why it gives you that endurance and it gives you that satisfaction. He says you won't feel hungry or deprived because starches are not only healthy, which, and a lot of people tell you that starches are bad, that they're fattening, that they're not good for you. There's a lot of that floating around. So really you need to do your research and then make a decision on what you're going to try. And the best way to really find for yourself where the truth lies is to try it. You know what I mean? Like, I remember when I was considering trying a vegan diet or a plant-based diet, and there was so much different, conflicting information. It's like, is this diet even safe? I wasn't sure. So I really just had to try it. And when you heal from lifelong illnesses on that diet, it's probably a pretty good diet. If you're healing, it's probably a pretty good diet. If you have new energy, it's probably a pretty good diet. So that's not to say you shouldn't do your homework and make sure you're doing everything you can to make sure, like I do take a vitamin B12 supplement, which I believe everyone should take, because that's a microbe that's found in the soil that's becoming more and more deplete with conventional modern day farming. So we do need to be aware of those things. So it says it's very different because it offers a way of eating that keeps you feeling satisfied. You won't feel hungry or deprived because starches are not only healthy, they're also comforting and filling. This is a plan that you can follow indefinitely, even when you stray by not following it 100%. and its benefits will be with you for a lifetime. In other words, this is not an all or nothing approach. So there's a little bit more there, but I wanted to skip ahead really quick to this chart that he has in here on page 4. It says, what is starch? So I'm just going to read a little bit of this. I want to make sure you understand what I'm talking about when I talk about starch, because there's really very little starch in this hot date. There's starch in all plant foods, but certain plant foods are going to be higher density starch. We'll talk about that. Your fruits have a lower amount of starch. Your things like potatoes, sweet potatoes, grains, pasta, and beans are going to have a higher concentration of starch. So those are the foods where we get our long-term slow-burning energy that give us that endurance that we need to live our lives. And the fruits give us that fast, good, that feel-good energy, right? Where like if you're going to go work out, you're not feeling sluggish. You're feeling like, yeah, I'm ready to go because I had my hot date. I really want to drink that, but it's still hot. I could add a little bit of cold water, but we'll get through this. Okay, so what is starch? I'm going to read a little bit of this. It says plants use water, carbon dioxide, and energy from form simple sugars through a process called photosynthesis. The most basic carbohydrate is the simple sugar glucose. So when we talk about carbohydrate, it's that energy that's found in the foods that we eat, notably plant foods. That's where carbohydrate's at. It's in the plant foods. I mean, there's carbohydrate in milk, there's sugar in milk, but you're not going to find any carbohydrates in meat, dairy, and eggs. It's in the plants. The carbohydrate is in the plants. So the diet that I'm on, a vegan, plant-based, whole foods diet, is a high carbohydrate diet because I eat only plants, which are, that's carbohydrate. So when we talk about carbohydrate, it's important to understand that those are your good carbohydrates. Now, when we start looking at things like cupcakes and candy bars and cookies, yeah, those are a high carb food too, but that's because they're filled with sugar. They're also a high fat food because they're filled with oil and egg, that kind of thing. So those are, we can consider those bad carbohydrates. But when I talk about carbohydrate, I'm talking about a high carb diet that's good carbs, which is plants, fruits, vegetables, potatoes, beans, that kind of thing. So he says the most basic carbohydrate is the simple sugar glucose. That's a simple basic carbohydrate found in plants. Inside the plant cells, simple sugars are linked into chains, some of them arranged in a straight line, amylose, and others in many branches, amylopectin. When these sugar chains gather in large quantities inside a plant's cells, they form a starch grain, also called a starch granule or amyloplasts. Plants store in their roots, stems, leaves, flowers, seeds, and fruit the starch they produce. So in the plants, from the bottom to the top, there's starch, from the root to the fruit. The stored starch provides them with a source of energy when they need it later, keeping them alive through the winter. This is talking again about the plant, keeping it alive through the winter and fueling their reproduction the following spring. It's a really incredible thing. It's really an incredible, miraculous, amazing, intelligent thing. It's what makes starchy vegetables, legumes, and grains so healthy to eat. Their high concentration of carbohydrate not only sustains the plants, but also provides the energy needed to sustain human life, right? When we eat the plants. Starch should be our primary source of digestible carbohydrate. Now, when it comes to energy for the body, carbohydrate is the body's number one preferred source of fuel because the body can just get right to work with that carbohydrate and easily break it down and absorb and use the energy from that carbohydrate. The same can't be said about protein and fat. Yes, they're sources of fuel, but the carbohydrate is the body's number one preferred source of fuel. Let's go on. The enzyme amylase in our saliva and intestines breaks down the long carbohydrate chains, turning them back into simple sugars. Digestion is a slow process that gradually releases these simple sugars from the small intestine into the bloodstream, providing our cells with a ready supply of energy. I don't know about you, but I love me some energy. I've had chronic fatigue most of my adult life. So for these last 7 years, having a life filled with energy has been amazing. And it's because I eat a lot of fruit. I eat plant-based. I don't skip meals. I just make sure I'm eating good quality energetic foods. Fruits offer quick burning energy. So the fruits are your quick burning energy. That's that good feeling. Kind of like when you have that shot of coffee and you just like, wee, you feel good. That's what this does for me. If you're just eating an apple, yeah, you might feel better than if you ate a bag of chips, but it's not going to give you the same energy as if you ate, a larger dose of apple. So I try to eat apple every day. I've got apples laying around. But these smoothies are really about getting in a good dose of energy in the morning. So fruits offer quick burning energy, mostly in the form of simple sugars, but little of that slow burning energy, sustaining starch. And by the way, you can put a slow burning energy into your smoothies, and I'm going to be doing that tomorrow. Tomorrow's smoothie is going to have grains in the smoothie. And so, really, I think, like I was saying before, a combination of this diet with the raw till 4 is the way to go. I think this diet is great, don't get me wrong, but I do like fruit. And in his diet, on his plate, I'll show you right here, his plate looks like this. Mostly starches and some fruit and vegetables, which these would be non-starchy vegetables, and these would be your starchy vegetables, and water. So that's the McDougall plate. For me, I like this fruit section to be a little bit bigger because I love fruit, and because that's where I tend to get, I love that feel-good, quick-burning energy. I work out, and so I tend to eat more fruit than what he recommends. But that's fine. I think we each have to kind of cater to ourselves and customize our diet to suit what our needs are. So let's just finish this up. He says, the fruits offer quick burning energy. I read that. So as a result, fruits alone won't satisfy our appetites for very long. Now, I know there are a lot of people out there that are on a fruit-heavy diet or a diet like Raw Till 4 or even a 100% fruitarian diet that would argue with that. They feel that they do perfectly fine. I follow some people online. They show their blood results to prove that they're very, very healthy. They look healthy. They're leading active lives. So again, I think you have to customize your diet to suit your own needs because everyone is different. But Dr. McDougall believes that fruit alone won't satisfy our appetites for very long. He's saying there that if you only eat fruit, you're going to get really hungry eventually. And fruitarians will tell you that they eat a lot of fruit all day long. It's an expensive way to live unless you live in a tropical area where fruit is really cheap or it's free. For example, one of the people that I'm talking about that's mostly fruitarians, she lives in a tropical place where they have fruit trees growing all around them. They live on a fruit farm in a fruit forest. So they have every kind of tropical fruit at their disposal almost year round. So, I mean, and if that's the case, they're outside working their farm and eating fruit all day long, and it works for them. So again, you have to customize what works for you in your life. But he finishes up by saying green, yellow, and orange non-starchy perishable vegetables contain only small quantities of starch. So while there's still starch in your green, yellow, and orange, so he's talking about like greens like lettuce and spinach, bell peppers, non-starchy vegetables. While they're great and we should eat them, he's saying that they're a lower, dose of starch. He says the most important role is for these non-starchy vegetables is really to contribute flavor, texture, and color and aroma to your starch-based meal. So we use things like peppers and onions to flavor the meal. We use things like herbs to flavor the meal, cilantro, parsley, that kind of thing. And he says they offer a bonus in additional nutrients, such as vitamin A and C, that come along for the ride. So really what he's saying here, and we'll go to the classification of what starches are. So we have your grains. Those are high in starch. Barley, buckwheat, corn, millet, oats, rice, rye, sorghum, wheat, and wild rice. So when you do, a big bowl of oatmeal in the morning with a bunch of fruit on top, that's going to be a high starch meal. When you cook, your rice in the evening that you have with your salad or with your soup or your dinner or whatever, that's going to add that starch. Legumes, so these are your beans, lentils, and peas. And then your starchy vegetables, which is your carrots, Jerusalem artichokes, parsnips, potatoes, sweet potatoes, winter squashes, and yams. So, what potatoes, sweet potatoes, that kind of a thing. And then your non-starchy vegetables, are all your greens, your garlic, your, kale, leeks, lettuce, mustard greens, okra. It goes a long list. And then your fruits. Okay, so that's what we're talking about when we talk about diet. So tomorrow I want to go a little bit into the starch eaters throughout history. Dr. McDougall really does a good job of breaking this down. Historically speaking, long-lived communities, tribes of people that have survived throughout history ate a starch-based diet, or they ate a lot of starch. So just an example here in North Central South America, the people there lived on maize for 7,000 years, and in the Andes, they lived off of primarily potatoes for 13,000 years. And so he goes on to talk about these different groups of people and how they were healthy, thriving people. You know, if they died, it was because they got attacked by a wild animal or in a war or something like that. They weren't dying of atherosclerosis, right? They, you know, because they eat a healthy diet. So it's really interesting stuff. I really enjoy Dr. John McDougall. So again, it's called The Starch Solution if you want to learn more. And if you don't want to pick up the book, he's got all of this information at his website. His website is called drjohnmcdougall.com. There's millions of recipes on there. And what I love best about his website is he has a link on there. Click on it. It's called Star McDougallers. And Star McDougallers is where he just has patients or people who have bought his book and tried his diet and healed through this way of eating, and they love it and they're able to sustain it long term. They give their testimonies on there. And so you can go in and start getting an idea that this isn't just for people with high blood pressure. It's for people with lupus. It's for people with Parkinson's. It's for people with rheumatoid arthritis. It's for people with chronic fatigue. It's for people with allergies. It's for, you know, it's really across the board is what you'll see when you start looking at these, you know, these Star McDougallers. It's really just, you'll be like, wow, it's good for health. It's good for helping the body be better at doing one of the things that it's supposed to do, which is repair, you know, heal. You know, your body has an immune system that's supposed to, you know, keep us strong and healthy and feeling good and looking our best and all of those kinds of things. But it can be compromised if we're constantly putting things in our body that are making us sick. Okay? All right. Thank you so much for watching. That's it for today. I'll be right back here tomorrow for, I've got 2 more smoothies to go. 2 more to go. All right. Thanks for watching.